So, welcome to the very first Mythological Mondays on my channel here on Andromeda. Um, this week, we are going to be talking about the Wooing of Étaín. That is a Celtic story. I decided that we're going to start with Celtic mythology just because I think Celtic mythology is really cool and not talked about a lot. So what I'm going to be doing for the YouTube videos, like to make them just a little bit longer and have more substance, is we're going to actually read the myths, which means I have the myths here with me. I'm reading them out of the Early Irish Myths and Sagas. This is a book that I had as a resource in class when I had an Irish Lit course 2 years ago? 2 years ago. Professor Lewis, or just Lewis, nobody called him Professor. Lewis is the one who got me into Irish myths, so this is a book that he gave me, and he's been teaching Irish Lit for a very long time. He is, complete side note, you guys don't know my name, you're not gonna know my name, but Lewis is one of only 2 people that I have met and they pronounced my name correctly the first time without me telling them how to say it. My entire life, I'm 21, 2 people, and he's one of them. So that was definitely a fun class. But anyways, we're going to be starting with the Wooing of Étaín. There are characters in here, the Celtic pantheon, that you guys don't know yet. So what I'm doing is I'm uploading videos on YouTube Shorts. So they are here. They're just little snippets about like each of the deities. There is longer versions of those snippets on TikTok, because YouTube Shorts only allows me to upload up to a minute, which is really short considering the fact that they're deities and have a lot more substance than that. But I will also be trying to go over who each of the characters is as they come up in the story here for you guys. So let's get started with the Wooing of Étaín. There was over Eru, which was one of the original names for Ireland. So there was over Ireland a famous king from the Tuatha De Danann. So there was over Ireland a famous king from the Tuatha De Danann, and Eku Olatir was his name. Another name for him was the Dogdai, for it was he who performed miracles and saw to the weather and the harvest, and that is why he was called the good god. So right here we were introduced to the Dogdai. He is one of the biggest gods in the Tuatha De Danann, which is a subsect of Celtic mythology. He is, as it says here, called the good god. This doesn't refer to him being an overall good character. It actually refers to the fact that he's really skilled. He knows a lot of different skills. So therefore he's good at those skills and the good god. He is the father to another one of the characters that's going to come up. Actually, this is kind of the story of how this other character was born. And he overall is just very important to Celtic mythology. Okay, so moving on. Elkmar of Brú na Bóinne had a wife whose name was Ethne. I'm most likely pronouncing that one wrong. Although she was also called Bone. That's what I'll be calling her, is Bone. The Dogdai wanted to sleep with Bone, and she would have allowed him, but she feared Elkmar and the extent of his power. The Dogdai sent Elkmar away, then, on a journey to Bresson of Elatha at Magninus. And as Elkmar was leaving, the Dogdai cast great spells upon him, so that he would not return quickly, so that he would not perceive the darkness of night, so that he would feel neither hunger nor thirst. And the Dogdai charged Elkmar with great commissions, so that 9 months passed like a single day. So, for Elkmar, it's been 1 day. But for the rest of the world, it's been 9 months, essentially. And that's important. 9 months right there. For Elkmar has said that he would return before nightfall. The Dogdai slept then with Elkmar's wife, and she bore him a son who was named Oengus. And by the time that Elkmar returned, she had so recovered that he had no inkling of her having slept with the Dogdai. So we're putting a pause right here, going back to Oengus. That's the other character I mentioned. He is, now his name is anglicized as Angus. He is the Makok, and I will from now on be referring to him as the Makok. And that just means the young son. He is also a god in mythology here, so he is very important. He is the god of love. So, yeah, he's an important character. We'll talk more about him later. The Dagdai took his son to be fostered in the house of Mitre at Brilith in Tethbe, and the Makok was reared there for 9 years. Mitre had a playing field at Brilith, and 350s of the young boys of Ireland were there together with 350s of the young girls. And the Mock Oak was their leader because of Mitre's love for him and because his handsomeness and the nobility of his people. He was also called the Mock Oak, as I have said, and his mother said, and for his mother had said, the young the son who is conceived at dawn and born before dusk, which was the Mock Oak, because of the way that the Dagdai had messed with time for Elkmar, where it was just 1 day for him, but it was 9 months for them. Now, the Mock Oak fell out with the Triath son of Febel, or Gobar, depending on who you talk to, of the Firbolg. Triath was also a fosterling of Mitre, and was the other leader at play. Oengus had no mind to speak with Triath, and he said, "It angers me that the son of a slave should talk to me." For he believed that Mitre was his father, and that he was heir to the kingship of Brilith. And he did not know of his relationship to the Dagdai. So basically, Triath is like, "You're just a slave," to the Makok, who is actually the son of the good god. But Triath answered, "It angers me no less that a foundling who knows neither his mother nor his father should talk to me." The Makok went off to Mitre, distressed and in tears, having been shamed by Triath. "What is this?" asked Mitre. "Triath has mocked me and thrown in my face that I have neither father nor mother." "False," replied Mitre. "Who are they then, my father and my mother?" "Eku Olatir is your father, and Bone, the wife of Elkmar of Brunaboina, is your mother. I have reared you without Elkmar's knowledge, so it would not pain him that you were conceived behind his back." "Come with me then," said the Makok, "that my father may acknowledge me, and that I may no longer be hidden away and reviled by the Firbolg." Mitre set out with his fosterling to speak with Eku. Thus they came to Uisneck Mire at the center of Ireland, and that is where Eku dwelt, with Ireland extending equally far in every direction, north and south, east and west. They found Eku in the assembly, where Mitre called him aside to speak with the boy. "What would he like, this youth who has never been here before?" asked Eku. "He would like his father to acknowledge him and give him land," answered Mitre, "for it is not right that your son be without land when you are the king of Ireland." "Oh, welcome to him," said Eku, "for he is my son, but the land I have chosen for him is still occupied." "What land is that?" asked Mitre. "Brunaboin, to the north," said Eku. "Who is there?" asked Mitre. "Elkmar is the man who is there," said Eku, "and I have no wish to disturb him further." "What advice, then, can you give this boy?" asked Mitre. Eku answered, "This. He is to go to the Bru Nassawin. He is to go armed, for that is a day of peace, and friendship amongst the men of Ireland, and no one will be at odds with his fellow. Elkmar will be at Nokshi, and the brew with no weapon but a fork of white hazel in his hand. He will be wearing a cloak with a gold brooch in it, and he will be watching 350s of youths at play on the playing field. The Mock is to go to Elkmar and threaten to kill him, but he should not do so provided he obtains his request. That request is that the Mock be king in the brew for a day and a night, but the Mock must not return the land to Elkmar until the latter agrees to abide by my judgment. The Mock is to argue that the land is his by right in return for his having spared Elkmar, that he requested the kingship of day and night, and that it is in days and nights that the world passes. Miter set out for his land then, and his fosterling with him, and on the following Samhain, the Mock armed himself and went into the brew and threatened Elkmar, and the latter promised him a kingship of day and night in his land. The Mock remained there as king of the land during that day and that night, and Elkmar's people did his will. The next day Elkmar came to reclaim his land from the Mock, and at that a great argument arose. For the Mock said that he would not yield the land until Elkmar had put the question of the Dogdai before the men of Ireland. They appealed to the Dogdai then, and he adjusted the rights of each man according to their agreement. By right, the land now belongs to this youth, Elkmar concluded. Indeed it does, said the Dogdai. He hooted at you menacingly on a day of peace and friendship, and since your life was dearer to you than your land, you surrendered the land in return for being spared. Even so, I will give you land that is no worse than the brew. What land is that? Asked Elkmar. Kletek, and the 3 lands about it, and the boys from the brew playing before you every day, and the fruit of the bone for your enjoyment. Fair enough, let it be thus, said Elkmar, and he sent out for Kletek and built a fort there, and the Mock remained in the brew. 1 year after that, Miter went to the brew to visit his foster son, and he found the Mock on the mound of the brew. It being Samhain, with 2 groups of boys playing before him, and Elkmar watching from the mound of Kletek to the south. A quarrel broke out among the boys in the brew, and Miter said, "Do not trouble yourself, otherwise Elkmar may come to the plain. I will go and make peace among them." Miter went then, but it was not easy for him to part them. Moreover, a sprig of holly was hurled at him, and it put out one of his eyes. Miter returned to the Mock, his eye in hand, and said, "Would that I had never come to seek news of you, for I have been shamed. With this blemish I can neither see the land I have come to, nor return to the land I had left." "Not at all," answered the Mock, "for I will go to Don Ketch, and he will come and heal you. Your own land will be yours again, and this land will also be yours, and your eye will be healed without shame or blemish." The Mock went to Don Ketch and asked him to come and save his foster father, who had been injured in the brew on Samhain, and Don Ketch came and tended to Miter until the latter was well. Miter said then, "Since I have been healed, it would please me to leave you now." "Well, that," said the Mock, "but stay for a year and see my warriors and my people and my household and my land." "I will not stay," answered Miter, "unless I have a reward." "What sort of reward?" asked the Mock. "Not that difficult," answered Miter. "A chariot worth 7 kumals and clothing appropriate for my rank, and the fairest woman in Ireland." I have the chariot and the clothing, said the mock oak, whereupon Mitre said, I know of the woman whose beauty surpasses that of every other woman in Ireland. Where is she? Asked the mock oak. She is of the Ule, answered Mitre, daughter of Ailill, king of the northeastern part of Ireland. Étaín Echraid is her name, and she is the fairest and gentlest and most beautiful woman in Ireland. The mock oak went to seek Étaín then at the house of Ailill in Magninnis, where he was welcomed and where he spent 3 nights. He announced himself and told of his race and his people and said that he had come to ask for Étaín. I will not give her to you, said Ailill, for there is no profit in it. The nobility of your family and the extent of your power and your father's is so great that if you were to shame my daughter, I'd have no recourse. Not at all, replied the mock oak, for I will buy her from you here and now. You will have that, answered Ailill. Tell me what you want, said the mock oak. Not difficult, that, replied Ailill. 12 lands of mine that are nothing but desert and forest are to be cleared so that the cattle may graze on them and men dwell there at all times, so that they may be suitable for the games and assemblies and meetings and fortifications. That will be done for you, said the mock oak. He went home then and complained of his predicament to the Dogdai. The latter, however, cleared 12 plains in Ailill's land in a single night. Mag Mache, Mag Lemna, Mag Nitha, Mag Tocher, Mag Ndula, Mag Techt, Mag Li, Mag Li, Mag Mrthemni. The task having been accomplished, the mock oak returned to Ailill and demanded Étaín. You will not have her, said Ailill, until you divert from the land towards the sea 12 great rivers that are in springs and bogs and moors. The fruits of the sea will be brought to all peoples and families. Thus all the land will be drained. The mock oak went to the Dogdai and again bewailed his predicament. And the Dogdai in a single night caused the 12 great rivers to run towards the sea, where they had never before been seen. These were the rivers Findi, Modorn, Slene, Nas Amnas, Oichen, Or, Bandai, Samwir, and Lochai. This task also having been accomplished, the mock oak again went to see Ailill and demand Étaín. You will not have her until you buy her, said Ailill, for after you take her away I will have no further good for her, and only what you give me now. What do you want then? Asked the mock oak. I want her weight in gold and silver, for that is my share of her price. Everything that you have done so far has profited only her, her family, and her people. You will have that, said the mock oak. The woman was brought to the center of Ailill's house, and her weight in gold and silver was handed over. The wealth was left with Ailill, and the mock oak took Étaín home with him. Mitre welcomed the two of them. He slept with Étaín that night, and the following day his clothes and his chariot were given to him, and he thanked his foster son. He stayed a year in the brew with the mock oak, and then he returned to Releith in his own land, and he took Étaín with him. As he was leaving, the mock oak said, Look after the woman you are taking with you, for there awaits you a woman with dreadful sorcery, a woman with all the knowledge and skill and power of her peoples. She has, moreover, my guarantee of safety against the Tuatha De Danann. This woman was Fumnach, wife of Mitre, from the family of Bothach, son of Ardenel. She was wise and clever, and she was well versed in the knowledge and power of the Tuatha De Danann, for the druid Bressil had reared her before her engagement to Mitre. Fumnach welcomed her husband, and she spoke of much of friendship to them. Come, Mitre, she said, that you may see your house and your lands, and that the king's daughter may see your wealth. Mitre went round all his lands with Fumnach, and she showed his holdings to him into Étaín. He took Étaín back to Fumnak then. Fumnak preceded Étaín into the house where she slept, and she said to her, "The seat of a good woman have you occupied." With that, Étaín sat in the chair in the center of the house, whereupon Fumnak struck her with a wand of scarlet rowan and turned her into a pool of water. Fumnak went to her foster father Bresel then, and Mitre left the house to the water that has been made of Étaín. After that, Mitre was without woman, as he should be for cheating on his wife. The heat of the fire and the air and the seething of the ground combined to turn the pool of water that was in the center of the house into a worm, and then they turned the worm into a scarlet fly. This fly was the size of a head and the handsomest man in the world. And this... Oh, sorry, that was my bad. The fly was the size of the head of the handsomest man in the world, and the sound of its voice and the beating of its wings were sweeter than pipes and harps and horns. Its eyes shone like precious stones in the dark, and its color and fragrance could sate hunger and quench thirst in any man. Moreover, a sprinkling of the drops it shed from its wings could cure every sickness and affliction and disease. This fly accompanied Mitre as he traveled throughout his lands, and listening to it and gazing upon it nourished hosts in their meetings and assemblies. Mitre knew that the fly was Étaín, and while it was with him, he did not take another wife. For the sight of it nourished him. He would fall asleep to its buzzing, and it would awaken him when anyone approached who did not love him. Eventually, Fumnak came to visit Mitre, and to guarantee her safety, 3 of the Tuatha De Danann came with her, Lu and the Dogdai and Ogmai. Mitre upbraided Fumnak and said that but for the guarantee of those who had come with her, she would not have been permitted to leave. Fumnak answered that she did not regret what she had done, that she preferred being good to herself and being good to anyone else, and that wherever she went in Ireland, she would bring nothing but evil to Étaín, wherever and in whatever shape the latter might be. Fumnak had brought the druid Bresel, from the druid Bresel great spells and incantations with which to banish Étaín from Mitre. But she knew that the scarlet fly that was entertaining Mitre was Étaín. As long as he could watch the scarlet fly, Mitre loved no woman, and he did not enjoy food or drink or music unless he could see it and listen to its music and its buzzing. With her druidry then, Fumnak conjured up a lashing wind that blew Étaín out of relief, and so for 7 years there was not a hill or a treetop or a cliff or a summit on which the fly might alight, only the rocks of the ocean and the waves, and it floated through the air until it at last alighted on the garment of the mock oak on the mound of the brew. The mock oak said, "Welcome, Étaín, troubled wanderer. You have endured great hardships through the power of Fumnak. Not yet have you found happiness, your side secured an alliance with Mitre. As for me, he has found me capable of action with hosts, the slaughter of a multitude, the clearing of wildernesses, the world's abundance for Alil's daughter. An idle task, for your wretched ruin has followed. Welcome." The mock oak welcomed the girl, that is, the scarlet fly. He took out his breast in the fold of his cloak. He just brought his whole ass titty out, and he brought it then to his house and his bower, the latter with its airy windows for coming and going, and the scarlet veil he put round it. The mock oak carried that bower wherever he went, and he fell asleep by it every night, lifting the fly's spirit until its color and cheer returned. The bower was filled with strange, fragrant herbs, and Étaín prospered with the scent and the color of these healthful and precious herbs. Okay. Fubnok heard of the love and honor that the fly was shown by the Makok, and she said to Miter, "Have your foster son summoned, that I may make peace between the two of you, and I, meanwhile, will go in search of Étaín." A messenger from Miter arrived at the Makok's house then, and the Makok went to speak with him. Fumnak, however, circled into the brew from another direction and unleashed the same wind against Étaín, so that the latter was driven out of the bower on the same wandering as before, 7 years throughout Ireland. The lashing of the wind drove the fly on in wretchedness and weakness until it alighted on the roof of a house in Ulad, where people were drinking. There it fell into a golden vessel that was in the hand of the wife of Etar, a warrior from Inber Kichmain in the province of Concobar. Etar's wife swallowed Étaín along with the drink in the vessel. Étaín was conceived in the woman's womb and was born as her daughter. 1,012 years from her first beginning by Alil until her last by Etar. Thereafter, Étaín was brought up by Etar at Inber Kichmain, and 50 chieftains' daughters were reared along with her, and they were fed and clothed for the purpose of attending Étaín at all times. One day, when all the girls were bathing at the mouth of the river, they saw a rider coming towards them from the plain. His horse was broad and brown, prancing, with a curly mane and curly tail. He wore a green cloak of the Sidhe, and a tunic with red embroidery, and the cloak was fastened with a gold brooch that reached to either shoulder. A silver shield with a rim of gold was slung over his shoulder, and it had a silver strap with gold buckle. In his hand he carried a 5-pronged spear with a band of gold running from butt to socket. Fair yellow hair covered his forehead, but a band of gold restrained it so that it did not cover his face. The rider stopped a while on the riverbank to look at Étaín, and all the girls fell in love with him. Then he recited this poem. Étaín is here today at Shibonfind west of Elbe. Among little boys she is on the border of Inber Kichmain. It is she who healed the king's eye from the well of Loch Dalich. It is she who was swallowed in the drink and the vessel of the wife of Etar. Because of her the king will chase the birds of Tethbay. Because of her he will drown his 2 horses in the water of Loch de Erbrek. Over her there will be much fighting against Echu of Mead. Sheed mounds will be destroyed, and many thousands will do battle. It is she who will be celebrated everywhere. It is she the king is seeking. Once she was called Befin, now she is our Étaín. None of that rhymes, so it's not a great poem, but it probably rhymed in the original language. It just doesn't rhyme in English. The young warrior rode away then, and they knew neither whence he had come nor where he had gone. The Makok went to speak with Miter, but he did not find Fumnak there. Miter said to him, "Fumnak has lied to us, and if she hears that Étaín is in Eru, she will go to do her harm. Étaín has been at my house in the brew for a while now," said the Makok, "in the form in which she was blown away from you, and it may be that Fumnak has gone there." The Makok returned to his house and found the crystal bower without Étaín in it. He followed Fumnak's trail until he overtook her at the Oinak Bovni, at the house of the druid Bressel, and there he attacked her and struck off her head and took it back with him to Brunaboyne. Echu Aram became the king of Ireland, and the 5 provinces of the country submitted to him. And the king of each province, Concobar, son of Ness, Mesgegra, Tigernach, Tekbundak, Kuuri and Ailill son of Mata. Echu's forts were Dunfermline in Mead and Dunfermline in Tethbay, and all of the forts in Ireland, Dunfermline in Tethbay was the one he loved most. The year after he became king, Echu ordered the men of Eru to hold the feast of Temir so that their taxes and assessments for the next 5 years might be reckoned. The men of Ireland replied that they would not hold the feast of Temir for a king with no queen. For indeed, Echu had had no queen when he became king. Echu then sent messengers to every province of Eru to speak with the fairest women in the land, and he said that he would have no wife but a woman whom none of the men of Ireland had known before him. Such a woman was found at Inverkirkmain, Étaín, daughter of Etar, and Echu took her, for she was his equal in beauty and in form and in race, in magnificence and youth and high repute. The 3 sons of Findlug were the queen's sons, Echu Fidlech, Echu Erem, and Ailill Agube. Ailill Agube fell in love with Étaín at the feast of Temir, after she had slept with Echu Erem. He would gaze upon her constantly, and such gazing is a sign of love. According to this myth, not really. Ailill reproached himself for what he was doing, but he could not desist. His desire was stronger than his will. He fell ill then, for he would not dishonor himself by speaking with Étaín. When he sensed that he was dying, he had Echu's doctor Fachna brought to him, and Fachna said, "You have one of 2 deadly pangs that no doctor can cure: the pang of love and the pang of jealousy." Ailill said nothing, for he was ashamed. Ailill was left at the Dunfermline in Tethbay to die then, while Echu made a circuit of Eru, and Étaín was left with him to perform the funeral rites, digging his grave, weeping over his body, slaying his cattle. Every day she went to the house where he lay sick to talk to him. And he grew better, for when she was in the house he could look at her. Étaín observed this and meditated on it, and the next day when they were together she asked Ailill what had made him ill. "My love for you," he answered. "A shame you did not tell me sooner," she said, "for had I known, you would long since have been well." I can be well at once if you so desire," said Ailill. "Indeed I do," Étaín answered. Every day then Étaín went to wash Ailill's head and cut his meat and pour water over his hands. And after thrice 9 days he was well. He said to her then, "My healing yet wants one thing. When will I have that?" "You will have it tomorrow," she replied, "but the sovereign must not be shamed in his own dwelling. Meet me tomorrow on the hill above the house." Ailill remained awake all night, but at the hour of the meeting he fell asleep, and he did not wake until the 3rd hour of the following day. Étaín went to the hill, and the man she saw there waiting for her was like Ailill in appearance. He lamented for the weakness his ailment had brought about, and the words he spoke were the words Ailill would have used. Ailill himself woke at the 3rd hour, and he was giving vent to his sorrow when Étaín returned to the house. "Why so sad?" she asked. "Because I made an appointment with you and was not there to meet you." Ailill replied, "Sleep overcame me, and I just now woke. It is clear that I am not yet well." "No matter," said Étaín, "for tomorrow is another day." Ailill remained awake that night in front of a huge fire with water nearby for splashing over his face. At the appointed hour, Étaín went to meet with him, and again she saw the man who was like Ailill. She returned home and found Ailill weeping. 3 times Étaín went to the hill, and 3 times Ailill failed to meet her. Always the man who looked like Ailill met her. "It is not you who I am to meet," she said. "I come not to hurt or sin against the man I am to meet. I come rather to heal the one who is worthy to be king of Eru." It would be more fitting for you to come with me," said the man, "for when you were Étaín Eachraid, daughter of Ailill, I was your husband. and I paid a great bride price for you by creating the plains and the rivers of Eru, and by giving your weight in gold and silver to your father. What is your name? Étaín asked. Mitre of Breleith. And what was it that parted us? The sorcery of Fumnock and the spells of Bressel. Mitre said to Étaín then. Will you come with me? I will not, she answered. I will not exchange the king of Eru for a man whose race and family I know nothing of. It is I who made Ailill fall in love with you, so that his flesh and his blood fell from him, and it is I who quelled his desire to sleep with you, lest you be dishonored. Will you come to my land with me if Eku binds you? I will, said Étaín. She returned home then, and Ailill said to her, Good our meeting here, for I have been healed, and you have not been dishonored. Wonderful that, said Étaín. After that, Eku returned from his circuit. He rejoiced to find his brother alive, and he thanked Étaín for what she had done in his absence. I'm just gonna check real quick to see how long this shit is still. Okay. So we are about halfway through the Wooing of Étaín, and I'm gonna say that's it for this week. Next week we will finish the Wooing of Étaín. It's just the story is a little bit long, and it's a little bit hard to decipher all of like the Irish words in there. As you could tell by my reading, it was not the smoothest thing. But if you liked that story, make sure you leave a like and leave a comment down below. Make sure you subscribe to see the rest of the Wooing of Étaín next week. And when you're leaving a comment, let me know what myths you want to hear, what mythical folk heroes you want to hear from from Celtic mythology. Since we're focusing on Celtic mythology to start about, I want to make sure that like we hit as much as we can, because there's a lot in Celtic mythology. However, we do have to realize that Celtic mythology is an oral tradition. There is a lot we don't know and a lot we will never know because it wasn't written down. But yeah, if you liked the start of the Wooing of Étaín, leave down below what you want to hear next, or tell me how much of a shit person Mitre is. I'm here for it. And I will see you guys next week.